Alrighty, what's up? How you doing today? I'm Jeremy. You don't care. Today I want to talk about getting started. Um, it's hard to get started on anything, whatever it is that you have in your mind that you want to do. It's tough thing to do. Get started. The Bible says in Proverbs chapter 20, verse 4, the sluggard will not plow by reason of the cold. Therefore shall he beg and harvest and have nothing. The idea is that there's never going to be a right time to start doing whatever it is that you've been putting off doing. If you wait for perfect conditions, you'll never do anything. People procrastinate all the time. They put off having kids, writing books, investing, starting YouTube channels. And so here we are. This is the first video on my channel. And I think the topic is fitting because it is just so hard to get started on something. I'm certainly a preparer. I tend to be overly prepared, and I spend a lot of time getting ready to do things. And I have no problem with that. It's just when the time comes to actually kind of get going, there's a lot of anxiety there, a lot of overthinking, I'd say. And there's a pattern of that throughout my life. We had a little family video recording of myself when I was 4 years old at my birthday party, and we had all gathered in the living room and come from a devout Baptist kind of old school family, and my sisters and my parents, they wanted me to preach for them. And I was just a 4-year-old kid, just messing around, having a good time, and playing church, I guess. And so anyways, I'm like, all right, well, we can do that. And so I set off to prepare for this. I decided that I needed a pulpit. And so I stood in front of this little fold-out couch or whatever, and well, that wasn't good enough, so my Bible was too low sitting on that. So I decided that I needed to set a throw pillow on top of it. And I set my Bible on top of this throw pillow, and that wasn't good enough. So I started stacking up throw pillows and spent a considerable amount of time in, preparing this pulpit, building this pulpit to the desired height. And finally, when it was obvious to everyone that no further throw pillows could be added, I got embarrassed and just kind of shoved the whole thing over. And needless to say, no sermons were preached that day. So, but that tends to be how I am, and that I don't think I'm that unique in that. I think a lot of people struggle to just kind of pull the trigger on things and get started, especially on something new. And so that's what I'd like to cover today. I think part of it is for myself. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I don't like things to be bad. I don't like things to be sloppy. I mean, if you watch videos on YouTube about starting a YouTube channel, people talk about, start where you're at. You don't need all the equipment and all that, which is true. You could certainly kind of move at the speed of cash and kind of add equipment as needed. And as you get better, you get a little bit better incrementally over time. I struggle with that. I'm sort of an all-in kind of guy. I like to, have all these things. And so, of course, throughout my life, there's been many times when I've purchased items for some random endeavor that I thought I would want to do, and then they end up kind of collecting dust. So it's hard to get started. And I think, like I said, I think a lot of people struggle with that. I love notebooks. But I tend to love like the beauty of a new notebook. And this, there's this certain like romantic element of like a beautiful brand new journal or notebook with nothing written in it. And I find that as soon as I begin to write in a journal, I've ruined it. Any little mistake, it's not perfect. It doesn't look as clean and fresh as it did. And so, I like the idea of writing in a journal more than I actually like writing in a journal. And there's a lot of things like that. I think it's easy to get caught up in that. But the point is, you actually can start where you're at. And I think that's important to note. Skills can be acquired over time. And the thing about skills in a general sense is a lot of times they are gained more through experience than they are through preparation. I mean, I'm certainly an advocate for preparation. You should prepare for everything. But there's a certain type of learning that can kind of only happen on the fly. The classroom can only do so much. And that's why, most degrees and undergraduate programs and things like that, you have clinicals and things like that. Like if you're going to be a nurse or a doctor, you have a certain amount of learning that you do in the classroom and in a study setting with books and textbooks and things like that. But there comes a time when you have to just get out there and do it. And so skills are acquired that way. And I've found that to be true in my life. And it's amazing the various tasks and jobs that you might have and things that you experience. Everything that you do throughout the course of a lifetime adds a certain skill set that you may not even realize you're acquiring at the time, but it'll tend to carry over into other aspects of your life. And again, you won't even realize at the time that you're doing this or being equipped in such a way, but it's certainly the case. I think it's important to realize and get a hold of in your mind the fact that there's no punishment for creating any type of content that's subpar or substandard. Like no one's going to come get you and take you to jail if your first YouTube video sucks. No one's going to, like if you write a bad book, the punishment is that nobody's going to buy it, nobody's going to read it. There is no, like that's the worst thing that can happen. And that's not really that bad if you think about it. In fact, not producing those things actually is just a deferment of that bad experience or that negative feedback loop that you're going to get if you create something that isn't that great. Well, you could do that today and be a little bit better tomorrow, or you could put it off and then you're still going to create that subpar content at some point, whether we're talking about a YouTube channel or writing a book or whatever it is you want to get started on, going to the gym, or there's so many things we could talk about. Maybe you want to learn a new skill like cooking or something. Whatever that thing is, you're going to be bad when you start. And that can be the case today, and you could be a little bit better tomorrow, or time can go by and you can procrastinate and you'll find that all you've done is defer that poor beginning experience. So I think that's an important part of the discussion is you need to just start where you're at. Get going, get something going and start to create that get on that learning curve and get things moving. You also need to have a reason for what you're doing. It seems to me that, especially when it comes to YouTube, a lot of people set out to try to create another stream of income. And you certainly can make money on YouTube. I think that much is obvious. What's not obvious to many people, it seems like, is how difficult it is to get to that point for some people and how much of a drudgery it might be on your way there. And so I think if your goal on the outset is to create monetization, you're going to struggle because it's going to be a while before you get that sort of positive feedback. You're making this video, you're getting this money. It certainly could happen. But if that's your goal, it's going to be a while in all likelihood before you do get that advantage. And so it's going to almost discourage you in a way if that's your reason. But I think there's a lot of benefits to creating content and doing a lot of things besides making money. And we're going to use the example of the YouTube channel, or in my case, I've written a couple books and not really made any money writing these books. I mean, I've made a little bit, but not anything worth talking about. But I gained so many other things writing these books. I developed my skills as a writer. I learned to think in a more organized manner. I created a great personalized gift for several members of my family and some friends. And that was certainly a positive part of the experience. I learned about the process of self-publishing. And so I think that's an important piece to latch onto there, is that every step along the way, whether it be publishing a book or creating a YouTube channel and making videos, even if you're not creating content that anybody else is going to want to consume, you're developing yourself, and you're going through this learning curve that's only going to allow you to be so much better in the near future. I think if we're talking about YouTube specifically, you can develop public speaking skills, which translates into so many other areas of your life other than YouTube itself. You're going to add some purpose to free time that you would likely have otherwise wasted on doom scrolling or whatever other negative habits you might have. There's a lot of ways to waste time. But I think also maybe the most important thing for me specifically is that it creates an outlet for the thoughts and ideas that you have. A sponge can only absorb so much water before it gets to the point that it can't take on anymore, unless it gets wrung out. And the same is true in some sense for the human mind. I'm definitely a consumer of content. I like to watch a lot of personal development YouTube videos. I like to read books. I like to read the Bible, study the Bible, all these different things, and I have so many ideas and so many conversations in my head with myself. And if you're not ever having that conversation with somebody else, or producing content, or even writing in a journal, if you're not having some sort of output and you just keep taking stuff in, well, there comes a point when you've reached your capacity, at least temporarily. And if it doesn't get out, it gets lost or replaced. And I think that's important. For me, I think it's one of the main reasons. It's one of my main whys for me starting a YouTube channel. And then I think also a non-monetary benefit of having a YouTube channel is the potential to find a community of like-minded people who have the same general interest as you. I don't know about you, but me personally, there's so many things that I'm interested in, so many different things that I've done for a living and as hobbies on the side. I think all humans are such a random conglomeration of interests and hobbies and experiences that it can, in the small area in which you live and the family that you've been assigned and the small group of friends that you have physically around you, you might find that it's difficult to find people around you who have multiple things in common with you. And so you never get to really discuss the overlap there and the interconnectivity of our world. One of the things that fascinates me about life is the way that it seems like all activities and all hobbies have so much carryover and are interconnected in ways that it's difficult to understand if you haven't sort of done both or all of them. And so I'm very interested to find people who maybe are carpenters and writers and readers and preachers and all these things that are true of myself. Whereas if I say I'm a carpenter and a preacher and I'm talking to a preacher who does some other job, well, we have one level of connection there. And in my eyes, it somewhat limits the relatability of the conversations that we can have. So I'm interested to see if this channel grows and if it's positive for the viewers, if I will find people who are a little bit more like me than maybe some of the people in my immediate vicinity. So those are my reasons for starting this YouTube channel. And I hope that if you're watching this and you've been putting off starting something, whether it be writing, journaling, starting a new hobby or learning a new skill, starting a YouTube channel. I hope that this video will encourage you to just get started.